Scratchy?
Night, neighbor. Night to everyone on the panel. I'm sure.
How are you, man? You doing all right?
I'm okay.
You doing all right, sir?
Definitely.
Okay. Scratchy, what I'd love to hear you on this matter of that Impact is suggesting that Isaac Buchanan could be a dark horse in the PNP's race. I mean, that's not what I'm talking about tonight, but you see that, sir?
No, neighbor, that will never happen, neighbor. That will never. And Isaac Buchanan is not even sure to win back that seat in 2030. Isaac Buchanan don't have the leverage, neighbor. Isaac Buchanan could have win case from now till morning, neighbor. That now catapult him to the leadership of the PNP party. And Isaac Buchanan, neighbor, is someone who is overrated, neighbor. Someone who is overhyped. If you look to Isaac Buchanan case, neighbor, Isaac Buchanan lost more case than more than what he won. And if people are talking about the Vibes Cartel case, neighbor, even if you brought that case with Vibes Cartel to the Privy Council, would have won that case, neighbor. It was a clear cut. Anyone with common sense of the law knew that once that case brought to the Privy Council, neighbor, even you could have bring that case to the Privy Council, neighbor, with it, neighbor. Isaac Buchanan, neighbor, don't do nothing that is extraordinary out of the box. I don't see Isaac Buchanan being the leadership of the PNP. No time in history. You look at his leverage, neighbor. I don't have any form of leverage, whether it's on the corporate side of Jamaica or whether it's on the lower impacted side of Jamaica. I don't have no form of leverage. He's just someone, neighbor, who try to market himself. And the way how he's marketing himself, neighbor, is making himself more popular. But it's not to make himself popular in a sense, neighbor, to be seen as a leader. He's just trying to create a face for himself. Maybe my brother plans to go into the entertainment industry, become an entertainer or something, but I definitely don't see Isaac Buchanan ever lead the PNP, neighbor. That will never happen, neighbor.
It's actually a shocking piece of information, because I tell you the truth. Let me show you something there, Scratchy. I just because I never wanted to do this. I never wanted to take up so much time. But you know, Scratchy, I think that we are going to have to discuss sometime the quality of candidates that we are choosing to put in parliaments, because there's a massive concern there, you know, Scratchy. And I think Isaac is one of them that, I don't know, but I get the feeling that he doesn't understand that he's a member of parliament.
He doesn't understand the role, neighbor. That's the neighbor.
For example, I saw this man doing a live, shirt off, tattoos, girls admiring his physique, asking him if he's married. You wanna marry me? No, I'm not saying that. That is not something.
For me, I think Isaac, neighbor, is more.
Is that what we have now as members of parliament, sir? Think about Nikisha Burchell, sir. We are going to get to her soon. But Isaac, sir, as a national leader of an opposition party, I'm not talking about prime, I'm just talking.
That will never happen, neighbor. I think that will never happen, neighbor. What Isaac is doing right now, neighbor, Isaac is trying to fix, neighbor, a certain narrative that's surrounding, neighbor. Isaac Buchanan, neighbor, is speculated to be someone who's in the ocean, neighbor. And I think he's trying very hard to try to let Jamaicans, to try to put Jamaicans' eyes from that, to let Jamaicans don't see that light. And that is why you're seeing the type of behavior that he's displaying online, trying to seem like someone who, you know, who's a womanizer, trying to come on TikTok and present himself a certain way, let the ladies come at him and stuff like that. Because there's a certain narrative. There's a certain narrative that surrounds him, neighbor, that surrounds his name. And he's trying to fix that. But I don't think he himself never see himself being any leader or trying to be any form of leader for the People's National Party.
But aren't we diminishing our politics? When we start having this type of conversation about, so this will start talking about Nikisha Burchell to be Prime Minister too. Yes, sir?
Exactly. And even when you look at him like Dr. Dawes, but those guys don't have the leverage near.
I understand that Andre Stevens is. I understand Andre Stevens maybe throwing his hat in the ring.
That's how him to that organization is.
You know that is true. I understand that they're trying to get him into parliament. Maybe to run for PNP's PNP leadership.
That's how empty that organization is, neighbor. But I'd say, neighbor, I just can't see Isaac, neighbor, being the leader. I don't think Isaac himself, he will see himself that way. Neither. Isaac is more busy trying to fix the narrative that's around his name.
Yes, sir, and I can tell you, Scratchy, I think we are going to, me and you, we need to have a conversation, Scratchy, about the quality of our MPs. Them already, so especially the one that I said, they're already, they're not representing the politics well, Scratchy. No leadership.
Neighbor.
And yes.
I gave you 2 names. So I just want to wrap up discussing the next name. Because out of them 2 names, let me tell you, results pass.
Hold on, don't leave yet, man. You hold on here. I want to hear protecting on this. ISAT.
Yes.
Mr. Protecting. Hello.
Neighbor, good evening, Scratchy.
Don't go to the sea, I beg you, sir. Just leave the sea alone. Comment on it. Don't go to the sea.
I mean, we don't have to go down to the sea, neighbor, because only fish swim around in a pool. A pool, let's see, me now. So,
don't go to the sea.
Me not aquarium.
Just give me your feeling. Give me your feeling. You agree that Golden is politically dead. Not gonna come. No, his career is virtually over.
Golden has politically crashed. But you see, the broader consideration, neighbor, is the current state of the PNP. So what Impact was saying, I don't have a problem if ISAT want to lead the current PNP, ISAT just will never.
Let's talk about the feasibility. Is it really an argument that you are here? Because you have your ears to the ground in the PNP too.
It's not really an argument, but I guess with the current makeup of the PNP, neighbor, and the current direction and the current trajectory of the PNP, all things you can just consider anything. Because I remember when I was growing up and I heard adults said you can put an orange shirt on a dog and present that dog to a constituency and PNP vote for it. The PNP has never really shaped that idea. But guess what? In a serious way today with the current PNP, I mean, you have that comrade lady pretending to be a journalist. That comrade lady pretending to be a journalist. Strike an argument to say that
Jamaica. Who is that lady? Who is that lady you're referring to?
The lady who pretended, no, neighbor don't like when name call. Neighbor platform different from the others. That comrade lady pretending to be a journalist said that Jamaica run out of Jankro. And I was thinking at the time that she was at the wrong. I was thinking at the time that she was at the wrong press conference. She should have been at the press conference. Says that Mark Golding was having, and I noticed she don't go to Mark Golding them press conference. I don't know why. Maybe she don't want trouble the comrade leader. But you see, Jamaica run out of Jankro. We have 28 of them on the opposite side in the parliament. And that is what the PNP has become today. So it shouldn't be mind-boggling and it shouldn't be surprising and shocking for us to even be considering, or anybody at all to consider, that
we're protecting. I don't know if this was said before, Mark don't have nowhere to go. I think September, you should even allow you should even challenge and put up himself. It would be a ticking time bomb, a venom, a kryptonite to the party. Just relax and don't even support nobody neither, because you've tarnished your political reputation. So nobody even support nobody. Step back and allow the process of the PNP to go forward. You have candidates put themselves in the ring and delegates vote. But if you ask me, I think the best candidate there is Damian Crawford.
The PNP have no candidate, my brother.
I'm saying the
Golding.
I'm not talking highfalutin. Politics me at all.
The PNP has no candidate to put up.
Watch
They
this.
have none.
Watch this. Watch over here, so now. If we look at we know, bro, God, and the GLP is solid right now. In every quarters you look, the GLP is solid as a rock. Over there, so over PNP, it is evident. Anybody at my age, where I follow local politics from partisan days, no, so the PNP coming like when you bleach out, you have an orange kerchief and you throw it in a bleach and they turn white. That is the PNP right now. It's the reason why we call them political riffraff. And people did not say no impact, you can't say that, but it's based on what I have observed. You can't look over there if you see nobody when it makes sense, except Damian Crawford. Why? Politics will always politic. Is the person over the PNP right now where you can say with support can do better than Mark Golding? And if anybody on the platform are in the listening numbers, discredit that, no bias. I'm not saying that he's going to win an election. That is a different argument. But I'm talking about viable candidate for leadership because Mark has run his course. And if the PNP keep Mark, then me no know. What you say?
Impact. You're saying in opposition, and one of the most difficult things for you as an opposition party is to gain funding. One of the most difficult things for you going into an election is to gain funding. And you see Jamaicans have a thing where they like when time they're donating their money to people they feel like have a certain level of financial strength for them own, a financial bucket for them own.
That is true.
I don't think Damian Crawford have that leverage there. I don't think Damian Crawford have that leverage there. Right now, the PNP being in opposition, the PNP is being funded from Mark Golding personal checkbook or Peter Bunting checkbook.
No, we don't know that.
Peter Bunting made mention of this already. Peter Bunting made mention of this. I mean, when Peter Bunting was going up against Peter Phillips, what Peter Bunting said if it wasn't for his checkbook, the light up at headquarters would have cut off a long time. So, when you know
how long ago was that?
No, I'm not trying no matter how long, I'm just saying when you're in opposition.
It matters.
I'm just saying, the point to me I prove is when you're in opposition, it is difficult for you to gather funding. Because Damian Crawford have that personal funding there. Can hold up the party structure going into an election for the month to get funding?
It all comes down to support. You made a very vital point when they say people want to support. If people are more inclined to support, if they feel like the candidate that they're supporting have a chance of yielding results. That is true. There's no debate about that. But you need to understand something and who is this? Protecting. It is the point I said I'm holding dear to my card. Because there's a strategy to this, and I'm holding it dear to my chest.
Yes, but I'm sorry, gentlemen, I have to interrupt. We have to get back on topic. This is not the topic we're discussing. We have to get back on topic, please.
Yeah, wrap up that for me. Impact.
Yes. So you are all correct in terms of support. Now there's a way to get that support. And that is the thing I'm holding dear to my chest because I rather call neighbor one away and tell him, so neighbor, you see this versus that are the deciding factor in the election.
Well, can you call me tomorrow?
Yeah, man, me I gonna do it. Me have a number, me I gonna send it now in a WhatsApp. Cause bro can do it, you know. Bro can do it, and then, yeah, man, bro can do it. The thing me I tell about, in do it. Yes.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Good. All right. Okay. Let's see if we can 8:30. Look at the time. We're almost pushing up down to 9 o'clock. So let me talk with you on this Sunday afternoon. Are you there, man?
Yes, Dave, I'm here.
Yeah, Scratchy. I started to talk about the fact that Jamaica's democracy and democracy generally is flawed, because democracy is like a structured conflict where you have this two-party system and they're antagonistic. PJ Patterson once spoke about the fight for scarce benefit and political spoils. Fight carried on by hostile tribes that are perpetually at war. And you have coined something that for Jamaica to grow, PNP must go. And a lot of people have been talking about that, a lot of labor rights, Scratchy. But in the broader sense, you don't think that we would be better served as a country if we, as a people, mature in the democracy and look at these political parties and decide that, we need to keep a government in place over a protracted period of time, rather than chopping and changing, because it really have not helped us at all. And I posit that to you, Scratchy, having over the last couple of days been researching the Singapore's success. And I realized, Scratchy, that we really have made some strides forward since independence, but we have also pulled it back. And so it's almost as if we have remained stagnant, Scratchy. How are we going to break out of this chopping and changing government, chopping and changing, while retaining the democracy?
Neighbor, before we go, you know that I'm not one neighbor who always try to compare Jamaica and Singapore, neighbor.
Yes.
My main reason for not comparing Jamaica to Singapore, neighbor, is the fact, neighbor, that yes, Singapore came to Jamaica, neighbor, they copy a lot of our structures, they copy a lot of our things, but the thing that a lot of persons don't talk about, neighbor, is how was those things instituted in Singapore, neighbor. The leader at the time, neighbor, who changed Singapore, neighbor, he had to jail neighbor persons who was in opposition to what he was doing, neighbor.
Oppose him.
He was seen as a dictator. He was seen as someone who a lot of persons, neighbor, rebut against him to certain way. So it's not like it was a situation, neighbor, where he
so
came to Jamaica,
Can Jamaica thrive? Can Jamaica thrive, Scratchy, and become wealthy when we have an opposition that is antithetical to the progress, that is always tearing down, that is sowing seeds of doubt in the minds of the people? Can Jamaica thrive?
No, neighbor.
And become it cannot.
It cannot thrive in the current format, neighbor. The current democratic process that we have, neighbor, is, yes, democracy is good and great, neighbor, but the Jamaica context, based on the type of opposition that Jamaica has, neighbor, it is hindering our growth. That is my reason for always saying that for Jamaica to grow, the PNP must go. Because we have one government, neighbor, who is the Jamaica Labour Party government, who wants to see the advancement, who wants to see the enhancement, neighbor, who wants to see Jamaica strive, who wants to see Jamaica reach its true potential, neighbor. And the things that are supposed to be put in place and supposed to benefit Jamaicans, neighbor, you have one party now on the next side, neighbor, who is the opposition People's National Party, neighbor, who all they can see, neighbor, is politics and saying that, okay, if we know that this is the right thing for Jamaica, that the Jamaica Labour Party is bringing, but if we should agree with it, if we should say yes and let's go in and do it, it's going to make the government look too good, and it will be difficult for us to become government if we do that, something like that. So we always have this tit for tat thing here in our democracy process, because we have
let me ask you, Scotty, and I know you were waxing there, because Siaga was opposition leader. Was he like this?
No, because why? Siaga was a patriot, neighbor. Siaga was someone who wanted to see the advancement of Jamaica. Siaga wasn't someone who just look at things, neighbor, from a political standpoint I was just trying to say I'm going to do everything in my power that I can become leader, that I can become prime minister of this country again. Whenever the opposition came with anything that made sense, Siago backed them 100% with it because Siago wanted Jamaica. Siago wasn't going to stand in the way of Jamaica development as a one-man or an opposition party neighbor, as we are seeing right now with the People's National Party, PNP opposition neighbor. Every single thing that has to do with the advancement of Jamaica, we see the PNP stop it, the PNP going the way of it neighbor. We talk about crime right now. Crime could be way off. Crime could have been down neighbor long time. After the incursion in West Kingston and coming into 2011 neighbor, criminals were on the back foot in Jamaica neighbor. When Andrew Warnes, our current Prime Minister, who was the leader of government business in the House, and he stand on his feet and asked the PNP to join hand in and extend the state of emergency at the time. Never Peter Bunting them voted against it. Peter Bunting them voted against it. And criminals were on their back foot.
Yeah, took the government to court to give up on states of emergency. A flawed process in our democracy, Scratchy. So what you are saying, Scratchy, is that Jamaica's growth is being held back by our two-party system, which is the democracy, but because of the quality of the opposition. They want to govern over the ashes. In other words, for the opposition to advance, Jamaica have to fail. We can't do that, Scratchy. We can't have such a process.
We cannot do that, neighbor, because all the opposition can see, neighbor, is Jamaica resources and how best these resources can benefit them personally and not benefit the well-being of Jamaica and Jamaicans, neighbor. And that is the problem that we're having right now in Jamaica, neighbor. You notice every time the Prime Minister stands on something that the opposition try to fight against, the first thing that they come and say is he's a dictator. He's coming with dictatorship style. He's coming, neighbor, all the year where everybody come and everybody talk about Singapore this and Singapore that. They don't tell the true story.
Yes.
And tell you that the Prime Minister at the time of Singapore neighbor, he was seen as a dictator. He had to lock up his opposition. So if that is why Singapore is where Singapore is at right now, because the persons who wanted to govern over the ashes of Singapore neighbor, the leader at the time had to get rid of them. No, I'm not saying that Andrew Wallace must do the same here in Jamaica. I am not saying that Andrew Wallace must do the same here in Jamaica. No. But what I'm saying, neighbor, is that the people, neighbor, need to continue to keep the PNP in opposition, neighbor. The least amount of them that we can continue to have in our parliament, it will be much, much greater for us, neighbor. So we see, all right, they had 14. We saw how sided they were, neighbor. They come with 28. Still a loser, even though you have 28 because the last year.
But very noisy.
But they're very noisy same way. An empty barrel, neighbor, make a lot of noise.
Press conference every week. Yeah.
And empty barrels make a lot of noise. So, neighbor, all I'm saying is that for Jamaica to advance, neighbor, PNP is in the way. PNP is our biggest hindrance to growth right now, neighbor. I don't see that even crime, neighbor, is a big of an issue, neighbor, to the growth and development of Jamaica as PNP. PNP come publicly and talk things, neighbor, not just they talk things, neighbor, they push away private investors. They try to send a doom and gloom situation to private investors. They try to send a doom and gloom situation to international investors. And they try to make Jamaica look like Jamaica is in the worst state that Jamaica has ever been in. They don't try to be real and be realistic, neighbor, and say, okay, Jamaica is in this situation right now, Jamaica is in that situation, neighbor. And a lot of the 28 of them, neighbor, they own private businesses in Jamaica. And if you should go around and try to get the balance sheet or get their books, neighbor, you'll see all these guys' companies are blooming in this last 10 years because of the program policies and program of the government. But neighbor, the PNP, neighbor, is a problem, and there's a lot of well-thinking Jamaicans, neighbor. And I always tell the neighbor, the reason why Jamaica is in the situation it is going on, neighbor, is because the persons, neighbor, who are impacting, neighbor, from the good or from the benefit and the policies and the program of the government, neighbor. These persons stay silent. These persons are not going to come and click a live, neighbor. These persons are not going to come publicly and say, yo, this is what has happened since the Jamaica Labour Party came in power for me and my family. This is how my life has changed drastically because of the Jamaica Labour Party government policies and program. It's not a Labour right thing or a PNP thing, but it's about the policy where the government are bringing. So a lot of persons now talk about that, neighbor. Persons who support the PNP, neighbor, all you're going to say is nothing going to go on for them. Them not get no contract. Them not get no this. Them not get no that because why? Them fail to follow the procurement guidelines. Them fail to go through the farm process, neighbor. It was always been a backdoor deal. Whenever PNP is in power, neighbor, it's all about who you know. It's like you don't need to do nothing. They don't need to follow any policies, guidelines, or rules. It's about who you know. No, Jamaica Labour Party is in power, neighbor. You have to follow all the policies. You have to follow all of the guidelines. It's not just about who you know. So that is why you see the government get this big rebuttal from the opposition side and from a lot of well-thinking Jamaicans, neighbor. When they see these well-thinking Jamaicans, we say, okay, these persons should have some form of level of understanding. These persons should have some form of level of sense. But despite that, they still here to come out and they talk about the government because it's their self-interest they're talking about, neighbor. They now look on the facts, so okay, I am someone who balance on a certain level and someone who can manage my own lifestyle and I've been living a certain way for a lifestyle. But with the man on the lower level, I have definitely seen that majority of Jamaicans who are at the lower end has advanced their living condition, has advanced their life, and I must feel good about that. They don't care about that, neighbor. They only care about their own personal interest and what they can gain and what best suit them. I want to see a Jamaica neighbor where not just only persons who support the Jamaica Labour Party life a change, because I wouldn't want that, because Jamaica cannot advance that way, neighbor. It's 2.8 to 3 million persons here, and the poor people have different political choices or what they choose. I want to see every single one, and that is why Jamaica is in the situation it is in, neighbor, because whenever the PNP was in power, it is only PNP that benefit. PNP alone benefit, neighbor. The policies and programs are crafted and created in a way, neighbor, where it benefit persons who strongly support the PNP. When you look at the Jamaica Labour Party right now, neighbor, whatever program or policy that is out there, neighbor, is not one-sided. It is so every single Jamaican benefit from these programs and policies. So for Jamaica to definitely grow, neighbor, the PNP must go. When I say PNP must go, and I tell you, say, erase them and get rid of them and get it and turn it into a one-party situation, neighbor. Our electorate who go to the polls every 4 or every 5 years, neighbor. These persons must send a message, neighbor, to the opposition and let them know that we like what is going on in crime. We like the low level of unemployment. We like the reduction in poverty. We want to be self-resilient, neighbor. We want to be self-sufficient, neighbor. We don't want to be too dependent on any politician, neighbor. I don't want to know that my member of parliament coming to my constituency and I see him, and the first thing coming to my brain is, oh, I can get 5,000 or 10,000 from him. That is not the case. That is not the case. Or I don't just want to go to him with my own personal problem and tell him, say, boy, boss, you know, when I go on, you know, me, I look something, you know. No, neighbor, whenever I go to my member of parliament, neighbor, I talk to him about the development of the constituency. The football field want pay for off, you know, sir. The netball court want pay for off, and I don't play netball, but the netball field want pay for off. The young girls, when the girls can have the netball field. So it's all about the advancement, neighbor, of the constituency rather than the advancement of yourself. And I can tell you that whenever these PNP member of parliament is going to their constituency, neighbor, it's all about personal issues. Personal come to them with personal issues. Give a man 50 chicken. Instead of them 50 chicken, they don't give no feeding. When 6 weeks come, the chicken, them weigh 1 pound and 2 pounds. So it is very difficult, neighbor. It is very difficult because you now fix the system the real way. Give the man a chance when he can buy him 50 chicken. Give him a chance when he knows, all right, when I give you the 50 chicken, oh, you're going to feed the chicken them now. But the member of parliament, no, you know, neighbor. He knows, so when him give the man the 50 chicken, the man don't have no way to feed them chicken here, you know. But him just want to give the 50 chicken them same way. The 6 weeks come now, and 1 pound the chicken them way.
1 pound.
1 pound the chicken them way, neighbor. PNP know exactly what they do, neighbor. PNP know exactly what they're doing, neighbor. So keep on Jamaican and keep in our hole. I
see. Wow. 1 pound of chicken after 6 weeks. Get no feeding. Anyway, so Scratchy, before I go to, by the way, welcome Jamaica Politics Uncovered. I'm coming to you. Scratchy, so the legitimacy of the opposition is gained by discrediting the government. Scratchy, we're not going to move forward, Scratchy. This is a painful discussion to have, you know, Scratchy, because I don't know, and you know, I know that this is probably a predominantly listened to program by labor rights, but Scratchy, if we are to be honest, there are issues in Jamaica that it's time come to fix them, you know, Scratchy, and we can't fix them if we do not agree on a path that we need to go on for the next 2 decades or so. This chopping and changing, Scratchy, and tear down politics, the adversarial nature of the politics, you know, sick and tired of it, man.
Yeah, but our the current structure, neighbor, of our political system, neighbor, and our persons try to seek power, neighbor. It is not helping us. It is a style, neighbor, from the 70s, the 80s, and 90s, and it don't bring us nowhere, neighbor. It do, neighbor, it falls us in a high poverty, bring us in a high debt, high crime rate society, neighbor, and those are the type of things, neighbor, where the PNP strive on, neighbor. It's like the human being, neighbor. You eat up all of your vitamins, and you eat up your proteins, and you eat up your calcium, and you eat up all of those things, neighbor. Those things enhance, those things improve you, you develop, your body grows. But neighbor, it is so sad, neighbor, that we have an opposition party, neighbor, who we strive for poverty, neighbor. When time poverty is high, neighbor, this is when the PNP is at their best. When time crime rate is high, neighbor, this is when PNP is at their best. When unemployment is high, neighbor, this is when the PNP is at their best. So it is just so sad, neighbor, and persons don't take the time out to stop and look at it and say, okay, Jamaica is advancing, both from a technologically advanced point of view and from a personal point of view, where our citizens themselves are even more advanced. So why Jamaica is advancing, but the advancing that Jamaica is advancing, the PNP is coming more and more irrelevant. Persons don't take the time out to look at these things and ask themselves, why when time we have crime rate so high? Why when time we have high levels of poverty? Why when time we have high levels of unemployment? Why when time we have the most bad roads in Jamaica? Why when time we have the most old houses in Jamaica? Why the PNP was so relevant at that time? Why the PNP was so hype at that time? Why the PNP was so strong at that time? So it goes to show you, neighbor, that these guys strive after the destruction of Jamaica, neighbor. The development of Jamaica cannot benefit the PNP in no way, shape, or form. These guys are anti-developers. They don't want to see the development of Jamaica at no point in time, neighbor, because the more Jamaica develop, the more Jamaica advance, is the more irrelevant the PNP get, because you can't go put them and go live on one squatter land, neighbor. You can't put people go live in a riverbed and make people feel like say you do something for them, neighbor, and you go put them there and give them no form of entitlement. You give them no form of, but your only thing you give them is entitlement and no title. You give them entitlement and no actual title. You give them the entitlement to make these people feel like, say, yes, they have a sense of belonging. I'm a own right here, so, and this is where I live. In time, in reality, the way you live is not conducive to any form of living condition. It shouldn't be any form of residential living here. When you look at him, look, I'm about to tell you this all the while, you know. Pain my heart, and I think it's happy for me to come on this platform. I don't know what listen. A lot of persons outside of Jamaica listen here, and it pain my heart to feel like say me I bash my country, or me I bash my residents or citizens of my country, neighbor. But I am not. It is the reality. When you look at certain communities, neighbor, that support the People's National Party, neighbor, these communities, neighbor, you wonder what is going on in these communities. When I go down to Riverton, neighbor, first thing, Riverton, you can see that Riverton is an informal settlement, neighbor. You go to Riverton, neighbor, Riverton is an informal settlement. If you look at the development of Riverton, neighbor, there ain't no proper sewage down there, neighbor. There ain't no proper running waters down there, neighbor. There ain't no, that place was not built for any form of residential living, neighbor. And it's PNP put people there, neighbor. So if you're going to vote, neighbor, in that constituency and to become strong in that constituency, there's no way, shape, or form nobody can tell me, so Riverton is an official community, neighbor, informal settlement. When you look at certain areas in back to informal settlements, neighbor. Informal settlements. Neighbor, just the name of the places them can tell us that these places are informal settlements. Back to. Just the name alone,
There's a place
neighbor.
in Jamaica named Back to.
Yes, neighbor, that vote strongly for the People's National Party. And I can tell you, neighbor, that it is PNP, neighbor, that strive. They strive on the destruction of Jamaica, neighbor. Just the name alone can tell us that these places are now informal settlements, neighbor.
Yes.
Just the name alone. Back to, neighbor.
I see. What part that this, huh?
Right off Spanish Town Road, neighbor, man. Look a small little place right off Spanish Town Road there, neighbor. Grace Kennedy, neighbor, a big organization in our country. Grace Kennedy had a plant around there. And Grace Kennedy had to move that plant, neighbor, because of what was happening. Workers were afraid to come to work. Workers were being robbed. The Grace Kennedy facility, neighbor, was being targeted by criminals. And Grace Kennedy had to find it in their budget, neighbor, and find the funding, neighbor, to move them company from around there, neighbor.
What you saying to me?
They had to remove Grace Kennedy had to move from around that side, neighbor, because they were being preyed upon, neighbor, by persons in that community and the member of parliament and whosoever couldn't talk to them. And Grace Kennedy, neighbor, is a wonderful thing, neighbor, if you have an organization like these within your constituency, neighbor, where you can help with the development and the social development of your constituency. But Grace Kennedy had to leave because of what was being taking place down there, neighbor. Person don't want to go to work. Grace Kennedy, before it over 6 o'clock, neighbor, Grace Kennedy have let out the people from 3. Can't let them out when time it dark. They would have been robbed.